All right, let's talk about success. We're constantly bombarded by online gurus selling us a dream. But today, we're going to cut through all that noise. We're diving into the world of Charles Menlowitz. You might know him as the sincere economist, a guy who's built a huge following by just, well, telling the hard truth instead of the easy lies. This right here, this is the core of everything. Mendelowicz's whole argument is that the advice successful people give you after they've already made it, it's a totally different story from what they actually did to get there. It's a huge challenge to that perfect, polished image of success we see every single day. So first things first, let's just deconstruct this myth. You've seen it, I've seen it. If you spend any time online, you're being sold a specific blueprint for success, right? A perfect, optimized life that supposedly guarantees you'll be wealthy and happy.
I mean, if I asked you that question, you could probably paint a picture in your head right now, couldn't you? It definitely involves waking up before the sun comes up, a whole series of very specific, very Instagram-worthy rituals, and this vibe of just calm, cool, collected control. Yeah, this is the package they're selling. This is the highlight reel. But Mendelowitz asks a really simple but kind of devastating question. Of all the people who built their fortunes from the ground up, how many of them actually lived like this while they were on the grind? And there's his answer. Blunt, simple, zero. Not a single one. See, that curated lifestyle, that's not the reason for their success. It's a luxury they can finally afford after they've already made it. The real journey looked nothing like this. Okay, so if the whole serene, optimized entrepreneur thing is a myth, what's the reality? What did the actual path to building millions of dollars really look like for the people who did it? Well, according to Mendelowitz, the difference is pretty stark. The real journey wasn't about working smart, it was about working like absolute hell. It wasn't about perfect diets, it was about eating junk because you had no time for anything else. It wasn't positive affirmations, it was about taking insults, keeping your head down, and just pushing through. That's the grind. That's the part they don't want to sell you. And he's not afraid to use his own life as Exhibit A. He'll tell you straight up that his own success came at a massive cost to his health. And that reality is a million miles away from the perfect, balanced lifestyles these gurus are promoting. His warning is so clear. Following that fantasy path will lead you to failure. So, at the end of the day, the real path is paved with grit and sacrifice, not life hacks. It's about toughing out the unglamorous, difficult process for long enough to actually see the results on the other side. Okay, so we've totally torn down the lifestyle myth. But what about a real, practical strategy for your money once you start making it? Well, Mendelowitz has this incredibly simple but powerful framework that he believes works for absolutely everyone. He calls it the 90/10 rule. And the beauty of it is just how simple and scalable it is. It really doesn't matter if you have $1,000 or 10 million. The whole idea is to structure your money intelligently so you protect your main pot of wealth while still giving yourself a shot at serious growth. And visually, it's this simple. The huge majority of your money, 90% of it, goes into stable, proven, what he calls mom-and-pop style investments. That's your foundation. Then you take a small, controlled piece, just 10%, and you set that aside for what he playfully calls gunshots and bombs. So here are a few examples. That 90% bedrock bucket, that's for things like real estate funds, blue chip stocks, shares in those really big, stable companies, and fixed income. Now, that 10% bucket, that's where you can have some fun. You can take calculated risks on things like crypto, more speculative stocks, maybe even startups. It's all about controlled risk in a way that can never, ever sink your entire financial ship. Okay, this brings us to our final point, and honestly, it might be the most important lesson from Mendelowitz. It's about a really dangerous trap that so many people fall into the second their income starts to go up. And this just gets right to the heart of it. You can't confuse the look of wealth with the reality of it. One is about spending money on expensive stuff. That's a rich life. The other is about owning assets that give you freedom. That's being rich. And trust me, they are not the same thing. This is the trap. It's called lifestyle inflation. Getting a pay raise or having a business take off feels incredible, right? But if your spending immediately jumps up to match that new income, you haven't actually made yourself any more financially secure. Not one bit. You've just upgraded your golden cage. Mendelowitz tells this classic story about this exact trap. You've got a couple, they get a big boost in their income, but instead of saving or investing that extra money, they upgrade everything. New neighborhood, nicer car, more expensive schools. But of course, that new environment just creates new pressures to keep up. And at the end of it all, they're making more money, but they're saving the same amount, they feel more stressed out, and they are no wealthier than they were before. So really, it all boils down to a choice. The path that the gurus sell you is shiny, it's appealing, but it's probably a fantasy. The path that actually builds real wealth, well, that's a grind. It's full of sacrifice and delaying gratification. The real question you have to ask yourself is, which of those paths are you actually willing to walk?